Welcome to another Velocity Juice podcast. I'm Flavia.
And I'm Delilah. Today we have Joe from BakedIn. Do you want to say hello, Joe?
Hello.
Joe is the founder of BakedIn, an at-home baking kit business, both e-commerce and subscription.
That's it.
Yeah, amazing. So should we kick off? So Joe, please tell us a bit more about your background and when you started BakedIn and why you started BakedIn, and it'd be good to know a bit more about.
So I guess I had a bit of a non-traditional way into the food industry, and I worked in the IT industry for 15 years. So I started off my career as a software engineer for IBM, and I did that for 15 years. Gradually, I found out pretty quickly that I wasn't going to be a particularly good software engineer, and I was working in IBM's elite software labs. So I very quickly started moving into the management side, the side where you didn't need to know as much about computers or programming. And I found myself managing some student internship programs, development teams, test teams, and eventually I was sort of airlifted into one of our small acquisitions, or one of IBM's small acquisitions. And my job was to integrate them into IBM. So a company of 20 people who had just been bought by IBM, and to bring them into a company of, what was then probably 500,000 people. So a big company. Yeah. And that was kind of about the time that I was spending all this time with the founders of this smaller company. And I just, whilst my job was to explain to them all how great it was going to be part of IBM, I found myself just yearning to do something like them, like they'd done. So I loved working at IBM. It was a great place to work, loads of good career opportunities, but I never really liked computers that much, The software, so to put it in context, the software that we were developing was the software behind Banks ATM machines. So it's really, really technical, really important. It makes IBM a lot of money. 50 kind of probably 60 years old technology now, but absolute rock solid mainframe stuff. But it just didn't excite me, didn't make me want to get out of bed to go and do that, and kind of just had this epiphany that I wanted to start my own business, but I wanted to do it in an area that I was really interested in. So for me, that was either going to be golf or food. And I thought long and hard and thought I'm actually a better chef than I am a golfer. So, and I'm an okay amateur chef and I'm an okay amateur golfer.
So you love to cook? Yeah,
I love to cook. And it was around the time that Gusto and HelloFresh had just started to become household names. And so, these recipe kits were becoming something that people kind of really resonated with and, could relate to. But we thought there's no one doing this for baking. And I used to bake all the time and take it into work because software engineers work better when you give them donuts and cakes. And so it started with one of my friends, Anna, and we had the idea for BakedIn, which was kind of the HelloFresh or Gusto of baking. So we made up little kits in brown paper bags, and we took them to markets and food festivals, and we sold them at weekends and bagged them up in the evenings. And they were popular. People liked them, and it kind of snowballed. So soon farm shops started stocking the products and little delicatessens. But we were now producing these every night, and we were selling them all weekend, and we were going and doing a kind of demanding corporate job in the daytime.
And you were working full time.
So we did that for a couple of years, and it got to the point where I just found out about SEIS investment, and that opportunity I had a month before our 2 years was up.
Sorry, what year did you start BakedIn?
So I started in 2013.
Okay.
And then we decided that if we really wanted to make this into a big company, one of us had to quit our job and do it full time, and to do that needed some investment. So I had a month before we were over 2 years from when we started trading, and I managed to find some friends, family, friends of friends, a couple of high net worths who all wanted to invest, and we had that round kind of completed in I think it was a week. We had that one done, and then I got the SEO Invest, and that was kind of where the BakedIn story really starts, which is when we built our first factory, because something that was really important to us was we did the manufacturing ourselves, and today we still do all of our manufacturing. And we actually had the vision at that point to launch our subscription product. To this point, it was just kits, one-off kits you bought in the shops or you bought from our website. But we wanted a subscription box, and we started with 100 subscribers. I mean, now we've got, pushing 20,000 subscribers, but there's no co-manufacturer who would give us the time of day to make 100 boxes one month and then do a completely new product the next month. So we had to build our factory, and that pretty much used up our entire first SEIS round. Obviously, investment went a lot quicker than I had forecasted when I first pitched to investors and really realised how much it does cost to build and run a factory. But that decision has paid off in spades and has enabled us to grow, particularly through the pandemic. We could continue to grow because all of our manufacturing was still in our hands.
When did you realise that you wanted to go into the subscription base?
Well, really, once we made the case for the first round of investment, that's where we really saw the value. Was in having recurring revenue that was going to come back every month. It was going to be much more dependable. But also, we had the vision that we were going to build this community of people who are going to be our super fans, who love to bake, who are going to be our long-term customers. And that's why we believed, and we still do believe, that subscription is like a real fundamental part of our business, not just because of the model, but because of the engagement that we get from those customers once they become subscribers. Some of those customers are absolute super fans and will buy pretty much everything that we make.
So I'm really interested to know, what was more attractive, like the products that you were offering to these these baker lovers, or was it the marketing and the branding and going out there online? Like, what attracted consumers? And
so I think in the early days, it was something that was a little bit new. It was something they couldn't quite get. They could go into the supermarket and have for 50 years have been able to go to the supermarket and buy a box cake mix. And all in one, you mix it up and it's perfectly reasonable. Just know that it has its place and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think because we'd come up with something that HelloFresh and Gusto were doing really well, which is actually giving people the baking from scratch experience. I likened it to being on a cookery show where someone's weighed everything out for you. You see the chef and they put together this absolutely delicious creation. Everything's weighed out. It looks super simple. So you get all the best bits without having to go out and buy loads of ingredients. And if you're not a person that bakes every single week, then your ingredients go out of date in the cupboard, because unless you bake the same thing over and over again. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even, flour's got a year's shelf life, and even things like baking powder.
I never even thought of that.
Baking powder and yeast, they've all got a shelf life on. And unless you bake over and over again, you end up then all your stuff goes out of date. Whereas this way, people could come up and try completely new recipes.
And it just cuts time.
It cuts time and it cuts waste as well, which is a real big thing, is it eliminates food waste.
I guess one of my questions is for, obviously, the listeners that might not necessarily have tried your subscription boxes. Do they have to have anything else? I know that obviously in the supermarket, some of the choices you pretty much have to bring everything.
They do. They do need to add some things, right? So we send them in a letterbox sized box, which is really important to our customers, which means they don't have missed deliveries. These days things just get left on the doorstep. But we designed it. We actually modelled it on. We modelled it on the maximum size that Royal Mail said that we could use for a letterbox. We did that in the old days, but then we actually found out that didn't fit through most letterboxes. It was too wide. So the maximum size, so we were finding that this letterbox size box didn't fit through letterboxes, and we scratch our heads because we'd made it and it fit through my letterbox. It didn't fit through lots of new builds letterboxes. So actually we went back and looked at a subscription model that my wife's been using for many years, which is subscription contact lenses. And I got one of those boxes and I made our box the same size on the basis that these people had probably been through all the hard yards of finding the box that fits. And ever since we've done that, it solved the problem of things going through the letterbox. So we can't send eggs because they would smash on the floor. We can't send butter or any of the fresh ingredients because they go off in the post. So we always say to customers, you'll need to add either butter, eggs, milk, and then maybe one other fresh ingredient like strawberries or cream or something really easy to get from the supermarket. And that enables us to come up with lots of different creative recipes. And our customers are absolutely fine to do that because they want to bake something that isn't just got powdered milk in. They want to use like really good quality ingredients.
Amazing. So what kind of, when you started scaling BakedIn, you obviously had to do some digital marketing. What channels did you find were the most effective? Because I know.
So we didn't do anything for quite a long time, and the subscription base grew organically, very slowly.
Yeah.
And it was actually the first time we really started spending on digital marketing was around the time that we met Jamal from Velocity, and just before Velocity invested, we had just started to dip our toe in the water with Facebook ads. And we were getting some good success, but with very small budgets. And then that was the point where we decided we needed a bigger investment round to actually be able to go on and scale that. And that's where we started working with Velocity and started, talking to Juice about using that product to help us scale. And Facebook ads worked really, really well for us at the beginning. They're still working well, but it's not quite at the same level as it was. And I think a big part of our digital strategy has evolved into diversifying our channels. And what
how do you think that is evolving now?
I think it's even more important now. I mean, we're a multi-channel business. About half our revenue comes from shops, from retailers. So we've got product in big retailers like Costco, Hobbycraft, the National Trust, Next, lots and lots of small independents, garden centres, gift shops, those kind of things. And then the other half of our revenue is D2C, of which is split between one-time products and our subscription products. So that that's a really important part of our strategy as well. But when it comes to the digital marketing side, something we found since the iOS updates was a year or so ago, and that things evolve and you can't just do the same thing. So we've started, we do still spend the majority of our budget on Facebook and Instagram and Google, but we are now starting to see some really good results with kind of new emerging channels like TikTok is something that we're doing particularly well on at the moment.
Yeah. So what are you doing on TikTok?
So we've just started our paid social ad strategy. So that's just started. We're seeing some really, really promising acquisition numbers there. But we got on board with TikTok Shop in May, which is their e-commerce platform, which is quite new.
Oh yeah, we know it.
Yeah, and it's been kind of a roller coaster ride, but we've done a lot of live selling in the past on QVC. We've had a lot of success with our products because they're very visual, and they're, when you demonstrate them, it brings the product to life more than you can do. I mean, video ads is really important to us in paid social as well, but actually bringing the products to life by demonstrating them really
and showing what consumers can create,
showing what they can create, showing the end product. That's worked really well for us on QVC, and so we kind of took that experience to TikTok Shop for live selling. So we've built a studio in our offices, which we go live at least once a day. And, it's kind of a QVC style selling pitch, which the transactions all go through TikTok's own e-commerce platform. And we effectively sell the products and fulfill it and pay, quite a small margin to TikTok. I
guess one of the things that I'm curious, clearly a lot of the listeners are going to be early stage founders. And obviously, we would have already done quite a number of years of trading, positioning the company, having that fellowship. How much of your content, how much do you invest in content? Because that is such an off-putting element for so many founders. TikTok tends to be very demanding. Yeah,
we invest quite heavily in content because we've got a subscription box. Every single month we have to come up with new creative for the recipe cards, for the ads around it. There's a lot of new content that needs to be created. So we've always had at least one graphic designer and one videographer in-house.
Yeah.
Wow.
We actually have 2 videographers and 2 graphic designers now because there's just so much to create. And we have just invested in a full-time TikTok content creator as well, because not just the live selling is important, but the organic content is really important for bringing in the followers. We've got a few viral videos that have had views in the millions, and when we've had those videos, we've seen our follower numbers increase significantly. I mean, it took me, to put it in context, it took me from 2013 when we first created our Facebook page, and it's taken me 9 years to get to roughly 25,000 followers through TikTok, and it's taken me 9 months to get to 25,000 followers on TikTok, just because there's such a big audience there, and it's a very level playing field. So if you're creating good content, the TikTok algorithm will send, regardless of whether you've got 1 follower or 1 million followers, if you create good content, it will send views, and views will convert into potentially sales if you use the TikTok product links, but certainly into followers, and you build that, for us, a slightly different audience, because our audience has traditionally been the slightly older demographic, normally with children, but actually TikTok is now bringing that sort of age down. Now we're getting access to the Gen Zs and millennials, and it's not just Gen Z and millennials. This was the thing I shied away from TikTok to start with, because I thought that was just a very young audience, which wasn't our audience. But actually, I think 50% of it is over 30, something like that. So
that's crazy.
Actually, there's a large target market for us on TikTok.
I believe that today we were at an event with TikTok, and 67% of their audience is over the age of 25.
25,
Okay.
Yeah. It's massive. I was always thinking that TikTok, it would be a Gen Z.
I thought that as
teenagers,
my age group.
So
it's really interesting.
So good to be wrong,
Didn't
right?
you say, you said as well, just before we started recording this podcast, that you would get sales in a day much larger on TikTok than on your website.
Some days, absolutely. Certainly. We went live. We did a bit of a test on Tuesday. We started at 9 a.m, started a live pitch, and we rotated our presenters. We've got 6 people who are trained up to present on TikTok.
Amazing.
We rotated our presenters every hour, and we went from 9 until 6 constantly all the way through. We sold a lot more through TikTok than we did through our website. And we sold it was a good day's sales on our website as well. It wasn't a bad day. It's just there's so much opportunity in some of these new platforms. So for us, we still got the majority of our marketing spend goes through the traditional platforms, but I can see it certainly evolving over the next sort of 12, 18 months to more towards some of these emerging.
So you would definitely
too.
recommend to businesses in like the food industry, whether that being like at-home ready meals to, something similar to yours, you'd recommend them.
I would definitely recommend taking a good look at it. I mean, TikTok Shop might not be right for everyone. It's certainly good for our products, but maybe if you've got chilled products, it might be more challenging.
Yeah.
Or maybe really big ticket items might be more challenging too. But, the shop element is only one part of it. It's the organic and the reach you can get, the number of people that see your brand. We launched the product in Cinnamon Monkey in Aldi, into all the Aldis in the special buy section, and we made a very quick video. I think it took myself and my brother Patrick, who run the business with, we popped into Aldi, we filmed ourselves buying some, we took them back, we baked them, and we made a sort of 30-second video which went viral, and we had over 2 million views on that, which actually then helped to sell out of the cinnamon buns in Aldi, which the buyers were obviously really happy with, and hopefully has given us another opportunity to get some more products back in there. So even if it's not to drive the D2C traffic, there's a big benefit in actually making that content to drive sales in bricks and mortar as well.
Which brings me to a very good question. Vast majority of companies that we deal with, they always have to make this decision. They start digitally native, they're very much building everything, and then they realize that actually as they go further and further in that journey, they have to consider the route to retail and to distributors.
Yep.
When do you think is the right time for a founder to start really thinking, I want to be in Aldi and Tesco's and Waitrose and Costco? What is that point?
Well, for me, it was at the beginning. We obviously went into retail first and then went D2C. But, 9 years ago, D2C was a much less developed channel than it is now. So it was a more natural way in. I think retail is a really interesting and a really good channel to look at as long as your margins support it. So, one thing you've got to bear in mind is that a retailer will not want to sell your product more than you sell it for on your website. So you've got to make sure that your pricing structure supports that you've got margin for at least a retailer, if not a distributor and a retailer.
So what would you say that the margin is usually? Obviously,
it completely depends. In our industry, generally retailers will look for 40 to 50% margin, depending on the kind of shop, and a distributor will look for another 25% margin on top of that.
That means that you have to produce very, very cheaply.
It does. It means, and that's, I guess, it is an expensive thing to run a factory, but it does enable us to make a little bit more margin to do that. So to selling through distributors and retailers might not be perfect for every brand, depending on whether they've developed to be, a D2C only brand. And I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. You can look at your offer architecture, D2C, to maybe, encourage things like multi-buys.
Yes.
And, that could be a way that you can kind of use that as a sort of differentiator between what the products are sold in shops. And some shops sell our products a lot more than we sell them on our website. Selfridge is certainly, a shop that can easily sell our products more expensive than we sell them because, they know their customer base. And some of the bigger retailers might look for slightly smaller margins, and it completely varies from industry to industry.
How long did it take you from the moment you engaged with one of the supermarket chains or distributors? How long do you think that journey would take a founder?
Well, and again, that's an it depends answer. We've had relationships we've been building since probably since Sir Patrick, my brother, he joined as sales director in 2016. So up to that point, I did the sales myself, and he now looks after all our retailers. And we've got big customers that he started talking to back in 2016, 2017, that we're now starting to look at potentially getting a listing. So potentially 5 years. We've had ones as quickly as, so Costco, we had a discussion and they moved very quickly and we had a listing within a couple of months. So it completely depends.
Shocked.
It's a long game with some. It's a long game with some. And, there's even once you've got an agreement with some of the really big retailers, you could be talking, and we're talking to, one of the leading supermarkets about stocking our products for next Christmas. And so, some of the buying decisions happen next Christmas 2023. Yeah, all the so they'll make their decisions in November, and they'll lock down POs in December or January for next Christmas. So even if you have already built that relationship, sometimes you could be talking 12 months at least.
How did you form that relationship with Aldi?
Aldi, we've been speaking to for years. Okay. Again, I think the first meeting myself and Patrick had up in, in the Midlands, we went up was probably 3.5 years ago when we first pitched our product to Aldi.
Yeah.
And this August was the first time we actually got it through a special buy, which is in the kind of middle section where you go on a treasure hunt. So it works really well for our products. It's, I think it's all about relationships. It's all about relationships in retail, building those relationships with buyers.
Yeah.
Not expecting them to, place a, hundreds of £1,000 order with just a sample, looking at a sample. Often they're interested in data. And again, that's where direct to consumer can really help. Because if a retailer can see traction already, if they can see that you've got good sales online and there's actually product market fit and the customers want your product, then it's a much less risky decision for them to stock you.
I think that is probably one of the key areas where founders need to be very accustomed. D2C can absolutely inform much larger decisions later on, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So data is gold. The more you have, the more you can validate a specific product range, the better.
I mean, we focus all of our D2C, all of our digital spend is really, really, below the line, focused on, a little bit of traffic warming up, but then really very much focusing on our CPA through all those. Whereas in retail, it's more about above the line. But I see every single, and this is one of my reasons for multi-channel at the beginning, was I see every single box on the shelf because we have a really vibrant, strong branding that jumps out from you a mile off. Is every single one of those boxes is an advert, is an above the line advert for my brand. And even someone walks past the shelf, even if they don't buy, that'll be one of the, whether it's 7 or 10 times that someone needs to see your brand before they buy it. So I figure in my head that if I get boxes on shelves, then people are going to see them, and that's just some level of above the line marketing for the brand.
I am conscious that we're very much heading towards the end. So I just want to finish with a topic that so many D2C founders find incredibly difficult, especially during this climate, and potentially for the next couple of years as we're going through a little bit of uncertainty in the world and our economy as well. What would be the advice that you would give founders around the way in which they can get investor support? You obviously have been on this journey for so many years now. What would be the 3 things that you would do if you started again a company in this space?
So I would have raised money earlier. So I raised MISEI's investment. I spent 2 years building a very small business to that point.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, had I known about the tax benefits for raising investment early, and particularly with the new announcement, so that's limits being changed, I would have started that journey earlier. I think, I was quite naive when I started raising investment. It was a world that I had not been involved in, and I feel, a few investment rounds, further down the line, we've got some fairly big investors on board. We've got Velocity. We've got some very big private investors. We actually were fortunate. My first investors was Michel Roux Senior, who unfortunately passed away just before the pandemic. Oh. But he was my first in the first 15 investors, and he kind of put his name on all the products, approved all the products at the beginning. So I learned a lot about private investors from that round, and then very quickly learned about the kind of institutional investment world, and what you guys and what Velocity and people VCs look for in businesses. Traction, I think, was something that certainly enabled me to get my first institutional investors, and to actually show that we had a customer base, that we had a few thousand recurring subscribers, that we could acquire those customers for the right price, is actually demonstrating
repeatability
properly
is such an important element.
That we weren't just making up numbers on a deck saying, I will acquire customers for X, and I could say, well, we have acquired these customers for X. With the investment we could scale that significantly. So I think it would be get that traction, be credible, be a credible founder that really understands the numbers in that deck. And I see some other founders that I've helped with their decks that don't really understand the finances. And I have a head of finance now who's much better at finance myself, but I spent the first 7 years doing all of my own models, and really understanding them. So if I was pitching my deck, I would know my numbers inside out. So I would recommend that even if founders aren't financially trained, is to just spend time understanding numbers, so when you're questioned on them, you can actually give a credible answer.
Yeah, I think to kind of wrap it all up, obviously you work with us within Velocity Group from both equity and that. What do you think is the role of that products like ours, like many out there for direct-to-consumer businesses? Can they really help companies accelerate that journey?
So I think the big sort of pull towards the revenue financing kind of model is, once you've found a repeatable strategy that you can acquire customers for at the price you need to acquire them for, then if you have that facility, that you're not going to be frustrated thinking, I can't buy enough customers because I'm restrained by the capital I've got. So having a facility that can flex, as and when you find those sweet spots, I think is really important. And that's something that, we've been using certainly since our kind of last round of investment. And we, see that working side by side with the equity piece as well. And we actually have, used a lot of different finance products along the way: asset finance, invoice finance. I think, again, diversification using a combination works well for us.
Yeah, I think that there's obviously we're going to have a lot more discussion in the series and potentially in the next one around different products and their purpose. I think that, finance products are designed for a specific purpose, and utilizing for anything other than the purpose it was created, it can be very tricky for a company, especially in the beginning, when you don't have that cash buffer, or you don't have an investor that is willing to step in just in case things don't work exactly as they should. It's often a balancing act, and it continuously evolves. Like a marketing channels, and what worked 6 months or a year ago might not necessarily work in the next 6 months or in the next 12 months. So I think it's about being very vigilant and understanding intuitively how is it supposed to work and what it's meant to do for your business. I think we're very much heading towards the end. I have obviously enjoyed meeting you and learning about your journey. I absolutely had no idea you were with IBM, and on the technical side, such a jump and such an amazing 9 years, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a real cliche, but if you do something you enjoy, then it makes it a lot easier to get out of work and better go to work. I think when you're genuinely doing something you're passionate about.
Amazing.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Pleasure.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, and we welcome you next time.
Thanks.